That is amazing, though.
It is, actually, considering this business is so fickle. Anyway, good luck with everything.
Yeah, good luck with
And as I say, I'll see you in the charts.
Yeah, good luck with it.
Good luck with the
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
Hi, Mum. I'm just ringing to say that I've just met Cliff Richard. I thought you'd be quite excited. I just thought it was amazing. But I'll ring you later on and tell you all about it. All right, love you, bye. She'll go mad. She will go absolutely mad. Nearly as mad as me.
I never thought that I'd actually play centre court.
Sir Cliff Richard is a British institution. In almost 50 years in show business, he's sold over 200 Knight of the Realm and Figure of Fun. He's the nation's favourite bachelor boy.
There's plenty of people around that don't agree, with having sex outside marriage.
The Peter Pan of pop, committed Christian, and he was our first pop star. And back in the early 60s, Cliff wasn't just the #1 teen pin-up, he was the...
I've been coming to the Algarve since 1961. I've always enjoyed it. It's a very peaceful place. This farm I bought 10 years ago with no actual idea that I'd have a vineyard. I just wanted it to be a working farm, not just something that was a garden with a lot of dead land around. For me, it's just unbelievable that the resources have allowed me to buy a place like this.
Cliff very kindly invited me to stay the weekend with him in Portugal. And there was this black cat who they named Cilla. So I was standing to attention the whole of the weekend, Cilla, don't do this, Cilla, get out, oh.
But Cliff hasn't become an institution by sitting back in the sun like many a 60-something. Cliff is Britain's own ghost of Christmas past. And every couple of years, he's back, haunting the Yuletide charts.
I trained with him when he...
Very few artists in any country have had a career like that. But it was an all-consuming career. It must take up 24 hours of your day. It's not a treadmill, but it's his life. His career, I think, is a huge part of his life.
I think age is, for me, nothing. I can still play tennis. I'm running around like a 22-year-old. I don't feel any different since the day I was 18. I don't know how to feel. What am I supposed to do? Get a walking stick in a wheelchair?
He must get to sort of September or August and start getting itchy. He literally, his feet must get started. Oh, got to get the studio, got to find a Christmas #1. Now, what a way to live your life.
Good. Come on. Perfect. In front of your back. Relax the movement. Come on.
One of the reasons why I'd like to be #1 at Christmas is that if you're #1 on Christmas Day, there is no chart until the first week of the following year. Had I held the #1 spot in 1999, I'd have had a #1 in the 2000s. Because I've had a #1 of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I wanted the 2000s. So now it doesn't matter. If I have a #1 this Christmas, I will have had my #1 in the 2000s. And I don't think anybody's ever going to catch me on that. That's 6 decades.
Attack that one. Yes.
We don't need a Merry Christmas. We don't need a Happy New Year. The only wish on Santa's list is that one day there will be peace on this earth. Where's the backing? My band didn't show.
Cliff Richard was born Harry Webb in 1940 into the lower middle classes of Lucknow in India. His family had served there as part of the British Empire since the 1860s. For 3 generations, they'd never even been to England.
You know, my father did quite well working in India, but we had a lifestyle that was good, but he never had any money. We just didn't have to pay for anything because he worked for a company where they supplied us with food, they supplied us with staff, and so my parents had a very, very nice life.
We had a lot of servants there who did nearly everything we wanted them to do. And we were more or less very lazy, in effect, but it was the way of life.
I remember one day my parents walking into the lounge, and the servant's son, who must have been about 12, 14 years old, was lying on the settee. An absolutely unheard of thing. And my father was fuming. And the boy said, I only wanted to know what it felt like to be a white Sahib.
When Home Rule came, he brought us quite rightly back to home to England. And when we came to England, he'd spent everything to get us here, and there was nothing. No money, just nothing. And so when I wake up in the mornings and I find myself either in Barbados or here in Britain, the Harry Webb in me is impossible to keep under. That's the section of me that says to my sisters, I'll never, ever really quite believe this. It's just too much.
Back at his house in Weybridge, Cliff has 2 of his sisters, Jacqui and Joan, and their families over for lunch.
Is everybody going to have tea?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Milk.
No, thank you.
Who said no? Oh, Rach, what are you going to have? A glass of gin, dear? Are you going to have a cup of tea then?
That's all right.
Yeah.
All right. Have a glass of water.
Oh, yes,
Indian.
Yeah, I got these from the Kumar. The Kumar is sweet.
We used to like these, did we? Have you tried them recently?
Childhood in India was a really nice one because my memory as a child is all about flying kites.
How did it affect you then coming to England?
Well, in England, I think it wasn't so much us that suffered because we were all excited about coming over. It was a long journey, looking forward to seeing snow. And it's Mum and Dad, you know.
They had a very
Nan and
difficult
Grandad
time.
had the most terrible time. There were 6 of us in a room. I hate to say this.
Tiny little room.
Yeah, Auntie Dorothy's house was only as big as this kitchen and 2 rooms. Well, perhaps a bit bigger, but you know what I mean. I got called funny names at Indie Bum and Where's Your TP and stuff. People tried to bully me, and they did bully me. My mother used to think, why are your legs all bruised and everything? And I didn't say to her that I was having a tough time. But one day I got really annoyed. This guy had jumped on my back. I managed to pull him off and we fell on the ground and I had hold of his wrist. And you know, I rubbed his wrist to the bone on the tarmac. Now, I'm not proud of that, but I think I learned how to look after myself in a physical way then. But it wasn't very nice at the time. I remember walloping Donna with an old newspaper.
Oh, yeah. Bet he loved it.
They were both out working, so there were periods of time when we'd come back to school and I was sort of told I've got to look after her. And my father used to say to me,
Bet he loved it.
he said, you never, ever raise your hand to a woman. Never. You never hit a woman. Well, Donna was driving me mad this day, so I got the newspaper and I whacked around her bottom, but there's, I'm going to tell Dad. And anyway, she did. And I said, I never touched her. My hand never touched her. It was a newspaper. And I felt quite justified that I actually hadn't touched it. I think Dad thought it was quite funny. I think he still walloped me around. One jop, he'd say.
Yeah, one jop.
Oh,
What's jop mean? Is that an Indian word?
It may be Hindi, yeah. That's another word I could have thought of.
Yes, it's time once again to meet the memory man whose mind goes back far.
Viewed from the Webb's council house in Cheshunt, 30 miles north of London, 50s suburban Britain must have seemed a grey and drab place. And for the family, it was a million miles from the exotic but secure world of the Indian Raj that they'd left behind.
I can remember what it was like to be an ordinary schoolboy aiming at something that seemed beyond the stars to me. That's the Harry Webb that still exists in me.
Elvis Presley just walking out on the stage. He's giving his cues to the boys. He's winding up his legs. And here he goes with Heartbreak Motel.
Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel. Her line's so lonely, baby. Her line's so lonely.
I used to dream that I would wake up and be Elvis. I mean, it was that bad. It was such an obsession for me. I used to, use Brill cream on my hair. If we didn't Brill cream, I even tried lard once to push the hair up to be like Elvis.
Well, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. It's down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel, where you'll be so lonely, baby. You'll be so lonely. I'll be so lonely I could die.
My band and I were really just my mates at school. We started off by actually singing at like end-of-term parties a couple of times. And then we started to play outside the school.
They called the band the Drifters, but after they'd played a couple of gigs in Soho in early 1958, it was the lead singer who was getting all the attention. But Harry Webb just didn't sound very rock and roll.
The hardest thing was calling him Cliff.
I found that easy, didn't I?
I remember that if you said, it must have been you and Donna, not so much you, but if they said Harry, they go, oh, sorry, Cliff.
Yeah. I used to cough to get your attention because I just didn't like
calling me Cliff. I know.
Letters are all
think
different.
of Harry
No.
Ever.
Well, I think of you as
really,
Cliff, even when we were children.
I think that once the time went by, there's no way I was going to remain the Harry. And even the persona that I took on as a pop singer helped to change the fact that Cliff was what I was from now on.
Yes.
And 5 decades later, Cliff is still maintaining that persona. Today it's the photo shoot for the CD cover of his Christmas single. And as ever, Cliff knows exactly what he wants.
That's great. Now hang on, I haven't got too much white under my eyes there, have I? See, even that, when it's cropped, becomes something else. Yeah. That's why if we did one like that...
Cliff's different from everybody else.
Okay. But I like that, though. I
guess he's very competitive. He doesn't want to become Des O'Connor. He doesn't want to become the Morecambe and Wise joke.
Isn't this Botox powder, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the instant freezing.
Cliff sees himself as competing in everyday market for everyday record sales. He doesn't want to be thought of as an aging pop star.
So today we were able to really...
He wants to be treated as a pop star. But I think even he has to accept at 63, there's very few 18-year-old and 17-year-old kids that are going to go into Woolworths on Monday and buy Blue and Cliff Richard.
We're all going on a summer holiday.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, what up?
Morning, Wendy.
But being around for 50 years does have its compensations. The advantage he has over his Yuletide rivals is Cliff's army, the devoted body of female fans ready to march to any of Cliff's tunes. By early September, these ladies have spent 2 weeks camping on the pavement outside the Royal Albert Hall for a Cliff concert next April.
Sex on legs at 60, we said, when he was 60.
They've still got 5 days to go before the tickets go on sale.
The best one when he
start in the pants.
He was just...
He must have been born in leather trousers.
When he came down in that big ball in Birmingham,
he's got all these muscles
leather
showing.
vest.
His muscles showing. Oh, just makes you go weak at the knees.
It's just everything, isn't it, really? It's the body. He's got a really good body and legs. He's got great legs.
Oh,
that's why we like the tennis, because we...
He'll get the same sort of reaction as he always does.
Well, it won't make any difference because it'll be number one anyway, whether they play it or not.
I mean, I've got fans all over the world, and that will be their Christmas present.
Yeah, that's right.
Millennium Prayer. I bought 31 copies.
The fans are going to buy it and make it a hit, and it's going to be on the airways. He's going to be on TV. Also, he's a very professional artist, so he's going to work it very well. He'll be on Richard and Judy. He'll be on This Morning. He'll be on Parkins. He'll be on everything except Match of the Day.
There is an element of ageism in our business. You know, they can't. I think some people can't bear the thought that at the age of 60, I made Millennium Prayer, and that year became the biggest selling British single. Excuse me. I mean, I'm not saying it was the best single, but the people seem to like it best, and that's all that really counts in the end. It's a little painful sometimes to be held out of the competition, so to speak, even though I do force my way in sometimes.
Good to see you. Good to see you too. Yeah, what are you doing? I thought we were going to do something together, but we're not now. Did you mention about having a #1 in 5 different decades?
The pop singer Cliff Richard was created in 1958. But how was he going to become a star? The first step was finding the right song. No easy task, as no one in England had ever written a credible rock and roll song before. Step forward Ian Samwell, the group's rhythm guitarist, who wrote Move It on a Cheshunt Green Line bus.
I could have been like everybody else that was British, just singing other Americans' big hits. Whereas this way it allowed us to create what became eventually European rock and roll. September 58, I had to go with Move It. I had to go from 27 to 2, and I think it took 5 weeks, and I had to get past Connie Francis. I hardly ever got past her. Harry Belafonte, Pat Boone, Buddy Holly, Dwayne Eddy, Elvis, Everly Brothers, The Coasters, Max Bygraves. Mid-October, Connie Francis still #1, and I reached actually my highest position with Move It. It was #2.
With a hit under his belt, Stage 2 was getting the right band. By the end of the year, the original Drifters had all been replaced by the best musicians in Soho. Even Ian Samwell, the writer of Move It, was sacked.
I had to say goodbye to my friend who was my drummer, because when it came down to it, he just didn't cut it. Even with Ian Samwell, as a basic guitarist, he was fine. I needed a Hank Marvin, and so Hank Marvin came. And there are things that you have to do if you're competitive and dedicated and committed to something and ambitious that aren't always pleasant.
Okay, come and get it, it's Oh Boy!
Stage 3, get the girls screaming. Television was the coming thing, and the king of pop music TV was Jack Good.
Jack Good, to people like me, Cliff, Joe and all the others, he was very godlike. He was our guru. He taught us so much, and he made us, he could see things in us that we couldn't see ourselves.
I didn't want just singers, I wanted actors. So I would describe, now Cliff, imagine you're just coming to, you've been in hospital and you've had these horrible dreams coming to, and then suddenly you feel a hypodermic needle into your arm and you go, oh, you see, and that's the essence of what I want here in whatever the song was, Turn Me Loose or something. And he'd sort of look at me and think, oh, I don't know, is this guy for real?
And when I see oh man, I kiss her tonight. I'm loose, I'm loose, I'm loose, I'm loose, I say. I know today's gonna be that day. I want you all to understand that now I am a man, so turn me loose.
Everything Jack said, he took it in, he thought about it, he used it, and then later on he moved somewhere else. Lots of people will complain about artists, oh, I told him everything I know and he's gone off. Well, that's exactly why he's gone off. You know, as long as if there's nothing left to tell him, he won't go off. But once you've told him everything you know, they'll go somewhere else and find some more things to know. And Cliff absolutely fell in that category.
Cliff Richard was Harry Webb's instrument. He treated Cliff Richard as his Stradivarius, you know? Like a violinist expressed himself through his instrument. Your high fits would give a marvelous performance, but it was through that instrument. And Cliff Richard was Harry Webb's instrument, and he looked after the thing, and he rehearsed the thing, and he made it work. And it was just solid gold.
Well, I found my heart was a beat kind of fast, but baby, I know I was flirting with disaster. My heart, it got a mean streak. My baby got a mean streak. Well, if you want to stay with me, baby, my love, honey, baby, you must lose your mean streak.
I hated it watching Cliff on Oh Boy because there used to be a female organist called Cherry Weiner.
My name is Aloud.
At one stage, there was a rumour that, you know, he was going out with this Cherry Weiner, and I hated her. Oh, I did. I do apologise now, but I mean, you know, Cliff was mine. Cliff was mine, not Cherry's. Mine.
Got myself a crying, talking, sleeping, walking, living doll. Got to do my best to please her just 'cause she's a living doll.
Cliff had his act honed to a T as teenage girls went mad for their first homegrown rock and roll sex symbol. But Cliff himself wasn't convinced that this whole rock and roll thing was a proper career.
How old are you, Cliff?
I'm 20.
20? Now, how long do you think you can last as a rock and roll singer?
Well, I don't really know. It's very hard to say because in this business, whether you're a rock and roll singer or a straight singer, you can be up one day and down the next. But I think as long as the people want rock and roll, I don't know how it's going to go on. You know, I think the main thing is to do exactly what they want. In maybe 2 years' time, if they don't want rock and roll anymore, then I shall try and do whatever they want. You're really just a servant to the people.
There were no outlets to make money from rock and roll. The only place a musician could go and play was in the variety theatres. You know, so each of these rock and roll singers found themselves learning tricks of the trade from people who've been doing variety for years and years, and they became very smoothed out.
Stage 4. Cliff, the all-round entertainer.
There we went to the Chiswick Empire on the Monday night. I mean, they were just, it was like a madhouse, and this young guy walked down the aisle who said, "Oh, I didn't pay to see you. Where's Cliff?" And he was top of the bill. And I was just sort of starting. Comedy in the modern manner, Des, but as I say, Cliff was always encouraging you, you know, and he used to stand in the wings and kind of take notes about jokes. He wouldn't steal your jokes, but he'd watch the way you delivered gags.
Come on. Oh, all right. And enchanting soft shoes. And what do you know? You know the show.
Cliff, would you like to develop as a singer who can also act, or as an actor who can also sing?
I'd like to become an actor, very much indeed, but I don't think I can possibly consider myself an actor having made 2 films. I want to get stronger parts.
The young ones, darling, we're the young ones, and the young ones shouldn't be afraid.
He'd finally cracked it. At the tender age of 21, Cliff had succeeded in turning a rock and roll kid from Cheshunt into the household name we see today.
It was a West End first night that had everything. Princess Alexandra attended the performance. The film was Cliff Richard's latest, and pretty nearly everybody was there.
Tomorrow sometimes never comes. So love me, there's a song to be sung, and the best time is to sing it while we're young.
So what's the first thing that any self-respecting pop star does when he gets a bit of cash? He buys a sporty little car for himself and a nice new house for his mum.
You need me.
But Cliff went one better. He promptly moved in with her.
Young dream should be dreamed together, and a young heart.
From one semi-detached on a corner, we moved to another semi-detached on a corner, but an awfully nice area.
Very nice. It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it seems like a palace, didn't it? I remember the fencing too. Remember that fencing we used to have to side?
Oh, we had to have it extra high because the fans.
Because the fans were going along with their bikes and still looking over.
And then they used to put
their fingers. You know, years ago you used to have knots in the fence.
Yes.
They'd knock the knots through and they'd peek through, wouldn't they? It was awful.
Surrounded by adoring fans, Cliff was the most lusted after man in Britain, but he was careful to remain the boy you could take home to mum, without a girlfriend in sight.
Till my dying day, he said, son, you are a bachelor boy, and that's the way to stay. Son, you be a bachelor boy until your dying day.
And representing the young ones, Cliff Richard escorting his mother.
When I was 16, I fell in love with a girl as sweet as can be. But I remember just in time what my daddy said to me.
You know, when my career first started, the things I read in some of the gossip things was they tried to make me out as some kind of heterosexual sex maniac. And when that didn't really catch on, they turned onto the gay thing. And now I find it really rather fun. You know, I'm an enigma. Once I looked that word up, I thought, I like this. They don't understand me. Long may it rain. I don't intend to talk about everything in my life. And you're naive if you think that when I'm asked questions, I'm going to give all the answers that you want to hear. No, there'll be things that I'll take to the grave with me.
Do you regret not having a family?
Women after you.
People say to
Why is
me,
he never got married?
do you think he's gay? What do you say to that?
I like being slightly with a question mark above my head. I quite enjoy that.
Doesn't matter, does it? He's waiting for me.
Sexuality or the fact that he's
Doesn't matter. People don't understand the Christianity. That's right. But then I think we all think, you know, he's more available. You know, in one way, I'm glad he never got married. Me too. You know,
No, I think he should have got married to Olivia. When you see them on stage together, just
on stage, but
I think if
he would be a success.
If he'd got married, we wouldn't be doing this today.
No,
I don't
not that Cliff wouldn't do what he's doing now. If he was married,
I don't think he would be doing.
He would devote everything to his family.
I don't think he would be doing what he's doing.
I see what you mean.
He wouldn't be doing this. So we won't be sitting on this page. Freeze him for 2 weeks.
Maybe that would have been a good
idea. Day 18 of the fans' vigil outside the Royal Albert Hall, and the bachelor boy pops down for a visit. If Santa's list is going to make it to number 1, the troops have to be mobilised.
Right. Is it good? Then have a quick chat. Okay.
Oh!
I see, not the tent. Santa's list has only one wish on it. It says in the lyric, it says, we don't need a Merry Christmas, we don't need a Happy New Year. The only wish on Santa's list is that one day there will be peace on this earth.
Is it a slow one or an upbeat one?
It's got a sort of ethnic feel. It's like a sort of...
Sing it.
Go on, give us a chorus.
The feel of it's different. The feel is... It's got a sort of... It moves. And it's kind of...
Oh, that, yeah. Beat.
We don't... I can't remember. Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you. Whoever arranged
waste all this time queuing up to buy tickets when I'm not quite sure that they couldn't get the tickets in the normal route. But as I asked them why did you do it, they said they want front row. And there's always that there's always that thing about if you queue up like everybody else, you may not get the tickets you want. So they're a small group of people, but they're a breed unto themselves, or a law unto themselves.
Now I'm a teenager.
Cliff's always made his bachelor boy image work for him, binding him to his fans forever. But as the 60s really started to swing, Cliff's conversion to Christianity looked like it would be career suicide. It seemed like business as usual with Cliff and the Shads at number 1.
I stare into emptiness.
But privately, things were changing. It started when his mum remarried and Cliff moved out of the family home and moved in with his new friend Bill Latham and his mum.
Morning, mate.
Hello, Bill Latham speaking. Hello, David. Yeah, he's right here crunching his toast. Yeah, just hang on a sec. Right.
Was crunching me toast.
The lifestyle was incredibly ordinary. I was involved in a regular run-of-the-mill Church of England place in North London.
You know it's in a big open
It was a time when Cliff was asking a lot of questions about faith and all the rest of it.
It's not Booker Bang.
He moved very easily into an area of school teachers and bankers and accountants and whatever, regular day-to-day people. And a number of us were members of an organisation called Crusaders, which is a Bible class. We went to Crusader camps, and it was on the evangelical side of the Church of England. Basically a church that believed in if you had something worthwhile, it was worth sharing.
When you look, there's no one there. You're gonna find me way out in the country.
Tonight we welcome especially a young man who needs no introduction, one that all of us are familiar with by name. Cliff, we're delighted to have you. Let's welcome him this evening as he comes.
I'm not just in show business because I want to become famous and I want to make a lot of money. I do it now because I can give that service to God, and I can do things like this because my name happens to be Cliff Richard.
That was Harry. That was your real Harry Webb there with his glasses on. I couldn't help thinking, oh, goodness gracious. Great balls of fire, Cliff. What do you think you're doing? You're ruining a perfectly good career. And with the wrong side, at least you could have been with the Catholics, you know.
What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and grief to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer.
But Cliff hadn't completely turned his back on the charts, although by now pop music had split into two separate, very different paths, whilst rock music provided the soundtrack to the cultural and
Could you describe, Cliff, the actual part that this historical character of Jesus does play in your faith?
The reason why Christ can remain important, does remain important to people today, is that he lived beyond the crucifixion.
When Cliff made that Christian stand in the early 70s, I mean, the churches, wow, you know, he was somebody they knew kids would listen to.
Help the poor boy who's hanging in the nowhere tree. Have you got a place for me?
By 1971, Cliff the pop star was playing second fiddle to Cliff the Christian.
This is our message. This is the light on our Festival of Light. Praise the Lord.
When he joined the Festival of Light, a movement determined to roll back the 60s permissive society, he found himself with a new set of friends.
Cliff Richard, by allying himself to this huge reactionary force, came out publicly as the enemy of freedom, the enemy of change, the enemy of progress.
The inaugural meeting of the Festival of Light was at Westminster Central Hall, and yet we were infiltrated by these people that came screaming down like banshees, men dressed as nuns.
The nuns were wonderful.
Yes, they started it.
I think they might have been the first to go off, I'm not sure. Well, first of all, there was a lot, we'd agreed there'd be a lot of
John
slow
Chesterman started with the hand clapping. That's right.
So the hand clapping went on just a little bit too long, and the applause went on just a little bit too long, and people started to feel a little bit uncomfortable.
One of these people was up in the balcony at the side next to a little old lady, and was shouting and cursing at us. She grabbed her handbag and went, "Stay down!" And I thought, yes.
And Malcolm Muggeridge was on the platform, And he shouted out, "What do you think of homosexuals, Mr. Muggeridge?" And he said, "I don't like them." And of course there was sort of, this uproar. But Cliff leapt to his feet and was jumping up and down, really jumping up and down. And that's when I thought, my God, he'll be as happy as the rest of them to see us all carted off to the concentration camp.
Certainly in my heart now, I embrace almost everything. And thinking, I don't have the right to say that this is wrong. People nowadays, they'll often bring up something from 25 years ago, "Oh, but you said this." Now, wait a minute. Are we not allowed to change? If you come out of some kind of stimulating discussion, there will be something that will have changed in you. And you may not even notice it till a long time has passed, and you'll suddenly think, "Oh, well, I used to be downright against this, but now I'm not so sure."
Christianity remains central to Cliff's personal and professional life.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine, thank you.
And Bill Latham is still around too, but now he's Cliff's manager. Today they've taken a quick trip up the M1 to Manchester for another performance of Santa's List.
Just take care of the way down the steps.
Cliff's on Songs of Praise doing this. There's a bigger audience for Songs of Praise than there is for Top of the Pops. You ain't going to get Blue on Songs of Praise.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Cliff Richard.
So he's got Sunday night to himself. That's it.
But Cliff knows his audience, and he knows how to find them.
And I know that you will give an extremely warm welcome to Bill Latham and Sir Cliff Richard.
And I know, it's called Santa's List, by the way. I like it. There's a lot of big names around, and I end up at number 1.
These days, Cliff's clean-cut image works for him. But back in the 70s, it led his chart career into the doldrums.
Meanwhile, a rock and roll medley with Cliff and the Shadows.
Although he continued as a family entertainer, as a recording artist he was yesterday's man. And then a wake-up call for Cliff and his then manager, Peter Gormley. In 1975, Cliff was absent from the charts for the first time in his 17-year career. Something had to be done.
My career did take a step backwards, and I used to turn up at studios and just put my voice on. And it wasn't until I'd settled into my faith. In 1976, Peter Gormley had said to me, "Look, it's time we made an album," and we chose Bruce Welch to produce it.
I said, "Look, Cliff, I want you to be part of the records like you used to do with Cliff and the Shadows, I want you to be there at rehearsals. I want us, to get a feel for the song, just like being in a band, a group, like Cliff and the Shadows was." And that's what we did.
Bruce and I spoke about what kind of album it should be. And we decided that the only criteria we were going to use was that none of the songs would sound like Summer Holiday or Congratulations. That's not to put them down. We'd done those, though, and we just didn't want to do that again. So Bruce went ahead and started looking for songs.
But these miss you nights are the longest. Midnight diamonds stud my heaven. Southwood burning like the jewels that I...
We did Miss You Nights with an orchestra, and we did it live. Just like the old days, It was just electric. His vocal performance. And he was excited. I was excited. EMI was excited. Peter Gormley was excited, And Devil Woman was the same.
I think he was somebody who you would never expect at the time to have another hit. And then suddenly he started making records which just sounded great on the radio.
Devil Woman was the start of a 4-year roller coaster ride. With Bruce Welch at the helm, Cliff was back. And not just in the charts, he was bigger than ever. 18 years after Move It, Devil Woman finally gave him his first American top 10 hit.
They keep saying to people, not just the agent, people say, when are you going to come out and do a real tour? And I say, what do you mean a real one? They say, well, like, you know, for a few months. Well, I mean, I shall never do that. There's no way I'm going to ever be away anyway for a few months.
It's so funny how we don't talk anymore.
In the British Rock and Pop Awards, the winner is Cliff Richard.
And after 21 years at the top, Cliff Richard has enjoyed a hugely successful year in 1918.
Those 3 records, without a doubt, were the best pop records of that era. You forgot that Cliff Richard was how old he was, where he'd been. Bruce Welch added something that just took pop music slightly away from where Cliff had always been.
I continued on my way as Cliff's producer, and I went into Abbey Road one day, and my engineer, done all the Cliff stuff with me, said, I'll see you in Paris on Tuesday. This was like Friday. And I said, what's happening in Paris on Tuesday? He said, Cliff's new album. So I said, really? What new album? And that's how I found out that I wasn't doing the next albums. I'm the worst person at confrontation. I really hate it. But when it comes to music, you have to say to your producers, look, I need to try something else. Bye.
Cliff reinvented himself again. He was determined to keep up with the times, and he started...
Listen, whoever is a stylist should be shot. I presume it's himself.
Living doll. Thanks, Cliff. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move right along to the show.
I haven't finished, Ken.
Yes, you have.
Oh,
yes.
Listen, mate, there's more to the song.
Listen, we've got big superstars coming on. Big. And now over to him.
I've been part of the establishment for ages.
By the end of the 80s, Cliff didn't look like a pop star anymore. He got the OBE for his charity work and spent a year in a West End musical.
I've been called the Peter Pan of pop for so long.
Oh, yeah.
You tend to go out in the mornings trying to look like Michael Jackson, you know.
He took up tennis and didn't marry Sue Barker.
He started making records which didn't fit with the prevailing mood and sound of the time. And of course, if at the same time you hold all these beliefs which he did, which is mainly, I suppose, Christianity.
Sleeping, Mom!
These are not very cool things to be seen to be getting involved with.
By 1988, a new breed of fresh-faced young stars ruled the charts, and top of the pile were the nation's favourite couple, Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan. Cliff was nearly 50 and couldn't compete. When his single Two Hearts only reached number 34, his career as a current pop star was effectively over. Now Cliff needed a new route to the charts.
I remember when I was at EMI, they did a survey about who was the most famous Christian, and Cliff came first and Jesus was second. So I think that was a bit of a pointer to some people in marketing that it might be a bit of a core base to go for there. Christmas is always a time when sort of like adults come out to buy records.
The child is a king, the carolers sing. The old is past, there's a new beginning. Dreams of Santa, dreams of snow. Fingers numb, faces aglow.
The song that really attached me to Christmas is probably Mistletoe and Wine. It was an off-the-wall hit to me. I mean, when my manager, Peter Gormley, found it and said to me, what do you think of this? I said, oh, it's really sweet, you know, and I had to change some of the lyrics to make it really Christmas as far as I'm concerned.
A time to rejoice in the good.
Cliff realised he was onto something. But Christmas brings out all the big guns. And in 1988, the Prince and Princess of Pop undoubtedly had the youth vote. Everyone presumed the battle was over before it had even begun.
We knew he couldn't beat us. We knew he couldn't beat us. His last record had probably sold 300,000. Our last record had sold 900,000. So there's no way he was going to beat us. It was a physical impossibility.
Here is our number one, Cliff Richard, Mistletoe and Wine.
I like the competition. I actually enjoy the competition, win or lose.
The child is a king.
And I've loved being number one, but I've loved having a record in there in the top 10 at Christmas time. I mean, it's a great feeling. And you know that at that particular period of time, more records are sold, for instance, between October and December than all the other months put together.
With Mistletoe and Wine, Cliff discovered a foolproof formula that sustained him through the 90s, and which he hopes will take his single to the number one spot this year. And it's this winning combination of his devoted fan base and Christmas sentiment that's given him a unique independence from the mainstream music industry.
Hello. Smile, smile. That competitive streak has really carried him through the decade, and the reality that people still want to go and see him on stage, despite any knocking, despite your cool people who say, oh, well, you know, people still want to see him, people still want to buy his records.
Cliff was now an artist in a category all of his own, beyond fashion, beyond trends. So why shouldn't a 56-year-old famously celibate bachelor play the darkest romantic hero in British fiction?
It was Cliff's money, so he was deciding to put the project together. So to be the producer of that as well, why not put your own show and put yourself in it? Yeah.
At the story's heart, the cuckoo.
I can suggest only one thing more ridiculous than Britain's favourite bachelor boy playing the bad, mad and dangerous Heathcliff, and that's Julie Andrews playing Lady Macbeth.
I went to see Heathcliff 35 times, but I know somebody who went 76 times.
We had this very special moment on the top of the crag. He was reaching for me and he's bringing me towards him and he starts to kiss me gently and I can hear the audience going, oh no, like there was something. Every single night there would be a reaction or a oh, like this as he kind of drew me to it, and it was gorgeous, it was lovely, it was wonderful.
It is a poor conclusion.
Acting is a rather generous word, I think, for what he was doing. Cliff, bless him, has abundant talents, but knowing his limitations isn't one of them.
I have written to the papers a number of times trying to defend him because I don't know, the critics go there and they probably see it once, but the thing is, with something like that, the first time's probably not enough. You've got to keep seeing it a couple, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, but the thing is
to sort of see what it's all about.
Cliff's fans were devoted enough to keep Heathcliff running for a year, despite the critics, and they helped him buck the odds again 3 years later with Cliff's last Christmas single. Because Millennium Prayer sparked a huge controversy. The canny combination of Auld Lang Syne and the Lord's Prayer was too much for some people, and the song wasn't played on national radio.
I think as Cliff's fans get to their 70s, when they hear a 30-year-old DJ saying, I'm bidding that, I'm ripping that up, I'm never playing that, they think, well, you might do, I'm going and buying it. And in fact, I'm going to buy 5 of them.
By mid-December, Millennium Prayer had sold 1 million and was number 1.
DJs say it makes them squirm. George Michael called it vile, but Sir Cliff's rendition of the Lord's Prayer to the tune of O Lang Syne continues to hog number 1, with sales well of his nearest rivals. From today, though, it gets much tougher.
I don't think Cliff usually gets it wrong really when it comes to Christmas songs, so we were very, very nervous about releasing against that song. I think we sold like 250,000 copies or something that week, and for us that was an amazing achievement, and we didn't expect to sell that. But like I think Cliff was only like 5,000 behind us or something, which is a very small gap at Christmas time.
The official Christmas number 1 for 1999 is Westlife!
Westlife track stopped me having my number 1 in the 2000s. I had a number 1 in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I'd like one in the 2000s. I'll be unassailable then in terms of...
Oh no, it's not Phixx.
Richard, nice to meet you.
How are you doing? You alright?
Yeah, good.
How are you? Well, you're the 10 now, aren't you?
This is really weird because I'm used to just walking into my mum's living room and just seeing like your stuff, videos and stuff. How'd you do it? How will we be around like
Us young
45 years?
I don't know, it's different now. I mean, I think that it's always available, but you have to want it, really. You've got to have something to offer, and it's obvious you do have. So just play on it.
I've got to say, probably our favourite Christmas song ever is Mistletoe and Wine. Would you mind if we just gave you a blast of it? Would you mind? If we gave you if we sang it to you?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Join in if you
This is that.
I'm leaving. Practicing.
Okay, here we go. A child is the king, the carolers sing. The old is past, there's a new beginning.
Dreams of Santa, dreams of snow, fingers numb, faces aglow, and it's Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, children singing Christian rhymes, with logs on the fire and gifts on the tree. Time to rejoice in the good that we see.
I'm like shaking with nervousness.
Re-release it.
So here he is, the patron saint of the pop idol generation. He may or may not get to number 1 this Christmas, but he was our first real pop star, and his hunger for hits has never faltered. Cliff is a manufactured pop star, manufactured by a 16-year-old boy from Cheshunt who dreamed of being Elvis.
Who's it for?
Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and groove it. Shake, baby, shake, but honey, please don't lose it. This rhythm that gets into your heart and soul. Well, let me tell you, people, it's called rock and roll. You say it's gonna die, but honey, please, let's face it. They just don't know what's going to replace it. Well, ballads and calypso have nothing on. Real country music that just drives along. Honey, move it.
And there's more from Cliff on BBC One in tomorrow evening's Songs of Praise.